So again, I want to kind of throw this out, and we're going to kind of dig a little deeper. As you begin to think about your own brand, one of the things that I want you to think about, again, it's not what you say it is, it's what the outside world says about you. So if we use these names, typically there's more interaction, but I'll just throw these names out. And I want you to kind of think about them to yourself. When you hear the name Michael, what name comes to mind? In many of the presentations that I do, I hear the name Michael Jackson, and I hear the name Michael Jordan, are a couple of names, there are other names. If you hear the name Lance, what name comes to mind? Typically, people say Lance Armstrong. When you hear the name Lindsay, what name comes to mind? People typically say Lindsay Lohan. When you hear the name Kim, what name comes to mind? In many cases, Kim Kardashian comes to mind. And so when I say these are all basic names, there's a certain perception that instantly came to your mind that related back to these individual people. And so as you start to think about how you articulate, communicate, package, and present what it is that you do, people are going to have thoughts that come to their mind. It's going to be based upon what we talked about earlier, their experience. Their experience might have had nothing to do with them physically meeting you. It could be them going online, checking out your information, deciding whether they want to bring you in, whether they want to hire your firm, bring you in, and pay you to do something. So again, I want you to begin to think about that's the way this new economy works, where people, again, are going online and looking for information. So as you kind of move towards kind of helping me to paint this picture, as an independent professional, I believe that every single person has a genius on the inside of them. The problem is that for many people, the genius is locked up, and the genius typically isn't activated. And so part of what we really want to talk about is getting you to think about how do you unlock what makes you special, what separates the services, the products, and the things that you bring to the table. And I truly believe that it's this intersection of passion, problem, and process. And when I talk about passion, it's, how do you take what you truly love to do? But it's not just something that you love to do. It's also connected to your skills and your abilities. And I always use this example when I share it with people. I played basketball in high school. I played basketball in college. And the only thing that stopped me from going to the NBA was talent. That's the only thing that stopped me. Outside of that, I was shooing. I was going to be a lottery pick. But I realized that as passionate as I was about that sport, my skill sets were not at a high enough level to where I was going to be able to, it wasn't a viable, sustainable business model for me. So I knew I had to do something else that I was passionate about that really connected back to my skills. So again, you have to think about that in terms of the business that you're in. For some people, you might have to pivot, right? So again, you might start out in one space and you're finding out that you're not getting the kind of traction, or people are not as excited about what it is that you do. So you want to make sure that your passion is connected to your skills and your abilities specifically. Looking at the problem, what specific problem are you solving? And again, being really focused in terms of, so you can be positioned as a thought leader becomes very important. And so it's critical for you to be able to understand that, because it allows you to be able to position yourself for other people to see value in what it is that you actually do. And then the process. What is the business model? How does this idea make money? And as an independent professional, we all realize that we have to have well-defined business models with clearly defined revenue streams that allow people to understand what the call to action is and how the business generates revenue or generates, money. So again, those things become very, very important. So as we kind of go through this today, think about that and think about, are there any things that you need to do to be able to kind of make some slight adjustments? Because again, that might be where the opportunities come from, where things truly begin to happen. One of the things that I want you to think about is that every single person is a storyteller. And so it is your job to be able to tell the story. No one can tell your story like you can. And so regardless of what your industry is, if you're in finance or if you're in another area, you have to become the chief storyteller in your company. So that means that you have to be able to articulate and communicate the value proposition. You have to understand that people make decisions based upon the story that you're communicating to them. And so we live in a time frame of reality shows, highlights, and sound bites. And so you have to think about how are you able to communicate who you are, right? So if I have a Twitter account, what type of information do I need to post? How often do I need to post the information? What are some of the other channels that I should be posting to? What communities do I have? Because each one of these social networks has a different community. And so, there's some different, there are different demographics that go with this community. So how you share information and when you share it becomes very important because, again, people make decisions and they consume information different ways. So the first point to think about is that you have to become the chief storyteller in your particular business, and it's up to you because you're the face of it, how that story gets told, when it gets told, so that you can begin to gain some actual traction. 3 points to think about as it relates back to this. We talked about activating your inner genius, so thinking about what it is that makes you special, and then now taking that and then integrating that into your storytelling and really integrating that into your digital storytelling. So again, if you think about it like this, you're going to have various channels that you're going to publish content to. And so you have to figure out where are your customers at. So again, there are hundreds of different social networks. We typically talk about 5 to 7 of them when we talk about Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Instagram. So there's a handful of them that a lot of people spend a lot of time in. But again, you have to think about what are the channels that make the most sense and begin to kind of tell that story. And also, too, I really think that this is really, really important, getting us to things like startups in terms of being nimble, being quick, not trying to be perfect when we're publishing content, and not trying to be perfect before we come to market with certain ideas. Again, we want to operate with excellence, but again, we want to make sure that we're still getting ideas out there so that we can begin to gain some actual traction. If you look at this slide, it gives you a better idea of the amount of content or information that people are inundated with every single day. And so this is what happens every 60 seconds. So there are 100+ new LinkedIn accounts. There are 6,600 new Flickr photos that are actually posted. There are about 694,000 plus searches in Google. And so you can look at this screen and you can look at all the information that people have to deal with every single day. And so as you begin to put your message out there, you have to understand that people are being inundated with information. And so it's going to be very important in terms of really how you communicate the information. There's a certain etiquette. Back in the day, we had more of a push in terms of, from a marketing standpoint, where you just push information out there. You can't have the same perspective if you have a Facebook account and you're just pushing all the information and sending everything to people's inbox. Because what happens is that now people don't start to read that information. So again, you want to be thoughtful in terms of some of the strategies and understand your customer. I want everyone to understand that you are a media company. So you have to think about yourself from that particular lens, which means that some of it's going to be, you're going to have to learn it and get comfortable with the various channels and platforms from a digital standpoint. And what happens is that these channels, they change, and they change on a pretty regular and a pretty frequent basis. And so again, we have a screen that we're going to go to that's going to show you some tools, and we're going to spend some time on that screen. But again, I want you to begin to get this whole mindset of you have to think about yourself as a media company, because again, you have to start to get comfortable with some of these different platforms. And some of it is setting up a profile and just listening online. And part of that listening is just getting comfortable with seeing how other thought leaders in your space are kind of using these tools. It gives you an opportunity to be able to do some searches and to be able to look at information, to be able to see how people are engaging with other people in your industry or or viewing certain levels of content. So that becomes important. So if we take a look at this screen here, we want to talk about brand consistency. And so as you begin to set up the different profiles online, you want to make sure that you're being as consistent as possible. And so what I want to do right here is I want to talk about the concept of owning your identity. So part of this whole digital space, and from a brand standpoint, is that you have to figure out there's certain properties that you want to own. So there's .com, that whether every single person should own their name. So for me, I own HodgeSwimming.com and a host of other things related back to that. There are also business names or business ideas that I have that I haven't necessarily went to market with, but I know that I want to own the digital real estate that relates back to that.